Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve, myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
We're here again on this beautiful Tuesday evening / afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. We've got something slightly different this week, guys. We're going to be talking about some fan casts. So obviously, for people that we like in these roles, and obviously if anybody's listening live, you can join in the conversation, tell us what you think about our particular fan casts. Hopefully our ideas will lead us into other conversations to do with future projects and current projects and storylines that could or could not happen, or just a dream that we might have had one day. But before we get started, actually, on that note, before we get started, if he's listening, I've got to give Chris Arbor a shout out. He put something pretty cheeky on the group the other day about our podcast. We're going to dive straight in. But before we dive straight in, Alex, how are you?
I'm good. I got a good laugh out of that post, by the way, because I think it was about Funkos, and it was talking about, how we get lost on Funkos for probably 5 minutes sometimes at least, so
it happens though. It happens. It's nice to digress every now and again.
Yeah. I mean, I think with a lot of collectibles too, there's always so much stuff that, even the stuff that we don't buy, just the stuff we see, it's cool to talk about it sometimes,
This is it. Jared, how are you?
Doing good. Kids are back obviously started school today, so they're back in school. So my days are about to go back to normal for everything. So I'm happy to have that happen.
Nice. Yeah, our school holidays last for another 2 weeks, or 3 weeks actually. But we're away on holiday for the next couple of weeks. So this could well be our last stream for a couple of weeks with holidays and all sorts of different bits and pieces coming up. So let's make it a fun one. So with that said, let's dive straight in. So we're going into some fan casts. Like I said, this could be any fan cast. We've chosen a couple of characters each, and we're gonna chuck them out there and see where we go. So I'm gonna go with my first one. My first one is the person I've chosen to fan cast was Professor X, Charles Xavier. I really like. I think you guys know what I'm going to say. I've said this before, but we'll have a little deeper conversation. Really like Patrick Stewart. I thought he'd done a great job as Professor X. I still think he does a great job now, but I don't think we've ever seen that kind of stern, hard-nosed type of Professor X. He's always kind of quite cuddly, quite kind of like a nice granddad. He's not sort of that. He was a bit of an arse, weren't he? Really, Professor X in the comics. He was a bit. Go on, Jared.
He was a master manipulator, like a huge manipulator, and he was made to seem like the good guy, but he really wasn't a good guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he kind of. Yeah, definitely a manipulator. That's a really nice way to put it. And I don't think we ever got that from Patrick Stewart's Professor X. I don't think that was Patrick Stewart's fault. I think it was probably just the way that he was written. But then having said that, I don't even know whether he could have given that, even if it was written like that, because he's almost too nice. So my fan cast for Charles Xavier would be Jason Isaacs. So Lucius Malfoy from the Harry Potter series, obviously done loads of other stuff as well. But I feel that he could give that really kind of that stern look, just without doing anything, without even saying anything. I think he's got that slightly harder look than Patrick Stewart, who's got quite a soft, sort of, like I say, nice kind of. He's like your grandpa type look, you sort of feel like he's going to sort of give you some pennies to go and buy some sweets at the shop rather than sort of, give you a telling off. And that's what I get. I think Jason Isaacs could do that. He's kind of older, but not too old. He's not, he's sort of, I think he's like coming up in his 50s now. So he could play Charles for a sort of 10 years, 15 years, if not longer, before he's even got to the point where he's old. So yeah, and I really like him. I think he's a great actor. That's my thoughts around Professor X.
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue with Professor X too. Is much like Magneto. We don't know if it's going to be an older actor or if it's going to be a younger actor. And either way you go here, I mean, it could cause completely different castings, which direction you go. But I don't know. For me personally, like I just like Esposito as that character. I think he would kill the manipulative side of Professor X, and it would be that very like, I mean, he could play it kind of like he does in The Boys with Vought, you know what I'm saying, where he's just like master manipulator kind of type deal, and you don't even know you're being manipulated. And I think he did a great job.
Yeah, my only worry about Esposito, I love him. I think he's great. But is he like, can he, I mean, like, yeah, okay, Charles Xavier was a master manipulator. He could be nasty, but he was, I know Jarian said he's not really a good guy, but he was a good guy. He kind of does want the best. Have we got so used to Giancarlo Esposito as a bad guy that we're kind of like, wait a minute, he's supposed to be a good guy, but he's actually a bad guy, but he's a good guy. But I've only ever seen him as a bad guy. So like your brain's just all discombobulated.
Yeah, I mean, like Deadpool's a good guy who's also a bad guy. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I mean, I look at Wolverine the same way. Like, we've got heroes that are kind of dirty, I guess, per se. I hate to say it that way, but like, and then
you're right.
Some that are like, just some of the greatest people in the world, like as a character. I mean, like these are like the people that are like working in soup kitchens and stuff like that, like, so like it's, I mean, that's like where you would see, like, I feel like Spider-Man is like working in a soup kitchen, with Aunt May or something like that, and then in the meantime out saving people. So you got people like that, and then you've got people that are like literally cutting people's heads off like Deadpool and are a good guy,
There's got to be a space in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's where Giancarlo Esposito as Professor X can sit. Joan, have you had any thoughts around him?
Yeah, and back to the manipulator thing, I think in both of the X-Men franchises, we only got a tip of it with Jean Grey in both franchises. And that's about it. We got a little bit with other characters, but mainly it was focused on Jean and controlling Jean's power and making sure that she doesn't, basically lose it and gets to her full potential. And you mentioned going back and forth, a younger one or an older one. I like the balance they did in Days of Futures Past with that movie, where they had both actors who played him in both franchises and went back and forth. I kind of like that. But with that being said, I got to agree with Alex. This seems like this is made for Giancarlo Esposito in the MCU. Let him play it. He's got range from when he was in Do the Right Thing all the way up now to playing Moff Gideon in Star Wars. The guy just has range, and I think he could pull it off. I think he could bring a different tone, a different side of Professor X, from the pages that we really haven't seen as much on screen in both franchises.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there is certainly like a missing part of Professor X that we haven't seen yet. McAvoy, they kind of tried to get him to do it, but it didn't hit for me. I didn't mind his performance, but I just he didn't really felt like a Professor X. He never felt like Charles Xavier to me. He's a good character, but just wasn't really Charles Xavier that I knew from, reading X-Men comics and watching the X-Men cartoon in the 90s, But yeah, two good options there. Alex, who's your first choice for your first fan cast?
So I'm going to go with Doom, and I'm just going to go ahead and swing that. I don't know why I'm so stuck on Cillian Murphy playing this role, and I feel like I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet, but I feel like his role in Oppenheimer is like this sort of like larger than life kind of role in that movie is kind of how it's being marketed. And I feel like Doom's just sort of that larger than life character. I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but like, I mean, I feel like he would eat that role up, and he could stand up there and monologue for 10 minutes, and I could listen to Doom, if he played Doom, read like a recipe, and I would sit there entertained the whole time, like I could just see him doing a great job playing Victor Von Doom.
Yeah, he's a great actor, isn't he? And like you said, those monologues that Doom gives, those really pretentious kind of like, you're all beneath me type monologues. Like, we need to see that. We need to see that on screen. I knew you was going to go. I knew we've obviously discussed what you was going to go for, but I knew you was going to go for Doom, and I knew you was going to go for Cillian Murphy as well. And is it like a little bit? You said like you're stuck on Cillian Murphy for this role. Like, this is like I've convinced myself, and I know you're going to laugh, and I'm not. This isn't my other one, but I've convinced myself that like Zac Efron's going to play Wolverine. Like, that's it. And if it doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, are you in a similar situation where you're like, this is Cillian Murphy's role? Like, it has to be.
I think, like, I guess sort of, I mean, I think Doom's one of those special kind of characters where it's like hard to cast Doom, right? Like, you have to get Doom right. Like, Doom has not been right like the last couple times that he's been on screen that we've seen him, in my opinion. I feel like that movie with Michael Chiklis and I cannot think of the other actors' names, Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, and
Grufford, yeah.
yeah, I feel like maybe that one was like the most decent of them all, maybe to me, that version of Doom. But I just feel like Doom's always kind of been put on the back burner behind the Fantastic Four, and Doom doesn't really deserve that, you know? Like, Doom is such a strong character that they could do so much with. And they can go either magical, they can go technology, whichever way they want to go. And with that, I mean, he's kind of like a little bit into everything. So I feel like you kind of need somebody that has that kind of personality that can carry that strength of that role, you know?
I feel like you almost need Doom in his own movie, almost like his, you know, instead of doing another Fantastic Four origin story, make a Doom origin story and have him come rolling on his bear. And, you know, by the end of it or some point, you know, just to see that screen, that live on screen of him riding his bear. I can't remember the bear's name, but him riding that bear in the snow, that is such a great shot from the comics.
My dream, like, I guess, like, third Doctor Strange film would be Doom and Doctor Strange going to fight Mephisto for Doom's mother's soul, and then coming back and it being like Cillian Murphy and Benedict Cumberbatch, like, together in a movie. Like, I just think that would be so cool, seeing both of them, like, doing magic and stuff like that. Be pretty cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd say, speaking on Doom and his own movie, I was thinking about this, and I think we've discussed before, haven't we, about that kind of idea of looking at movies through different perspectives. We haven't had a villain movie yet, have we? And you know, he needs to be. That would be a great first villain, quote unquote, villain movie, wouldn't it? Because he could well be the hero of his own story. I mean, he always is the hero of his own story, you know. But you could watch him and almost cheer for him, even though he's a villain, because he's got, like you said, those monologues where you just sort of get lost, and you know, you kind of think, yeah, actually he's doing the right thing, but he's just definitely not.
That's like, I shared a couple of panels on the group the other day, and it was just kind of like typical Doom, but like, he's got some lines in there that I really liked, and like a couple of them were like, you know, him talking about how like his people could rise up and like overthrow him, but they don't, because they know Doom ultimately at the end of the day always protects them, and he'll lay his life down for them. And like, those are his people, and he will die protecting them. And, you know, when you're behind Doom, like, Doom will protect you with his life, and he never seems to lose in his opinion. So, in his opinion, though, let's, you know.
Exactly. Even when he's lost, he's never out of the game, is he?
So,
who are you going with, Joe, for Doom? You liking Cillian Murphy? You got any other options?
I like Cillian Murphy, but I almost feel like this could be a role for Bryan Cranston.
Okay.
Yeah, I think him coming in as some kind of villain in the MCU, whether it's Doom or Mr. Sinister, I think he could pull off either role. And I think the way he carries himself, and just, if you go back and just watch him over all the movies he's played, he can pull off comedy, he can pull off the seriousness, he can pull the whole of it off, right? And then just go back and watch the Drug Show.
Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Breaking Bad. Thank you. Right there shows a good way that he can, you know, bring the villainous side, and even the sinister and the cunning and all that kind of stuff, those different sides of Doom. So I think he could do it. And so, although I like Cillian Murphy, I'm going to go with Bryan Cranston.
Nice. But that slightly older twist as well to it.
Yeah,
nice. So I've got somebody who's probably in between in age. I don't know the age of either of those people, to be honest. I should imagine Cillian Murphy's probably around 40, and I should imagine Bryan Cranston's around 60. My person is Michael Shannon, who played Zod. I think he could do a really good job of it. I think he's got that powerful sort of presence when he's on screen, especially like when you look at him as Zod.
Yeah.
You know? And age wise, again, like in that little gap, probably I should imagine he's probably about 55, something like that. I'm not entirely sure of his age.
Yeah, I can look it up where you're talking.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I just thought Michael Shannon was a good shout. I like him as an actor. I think he's good, and I think I liked him as Zod. I like that. I think I like that whole movie, actually. I watched that again a little while ago, I think I said, and I actually quite enjoyed Man of Steel, and I like him in it.
I think Man of Steel is a really solid DC movie, and I think one of the best scenes I think in that movie is with Zod and Superman. It's that scene where Zod looks at him and he's like, "These humans, Cal, I'm going to take every single one of them from you," and and he's like, "I'm going to basically make you watch as I do it," and Superman just hovers off the ground. He's like, "You're a monster, Zod. I am going to stop you," and it just hits him. Yeah, I mean that's just like bravo. Like, so
yeah, that was powerful. And also when they're on the ship, when he's talking to Russell Crowe's his dad, Superman's dad, and the AI, that's quality as well. That's brilliant. I love that whole back and forth between those two. Was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Loved it.
So that's what he just here. Cillian Murphy is 47.
Oh,
Michael Shannon is 49, and Bryan Cranston is 67. I realized Bryan Cranston was that old.
67?
I didn't really think he was that old.
I didn't realize Cillian Murphy was 47 either. I would not have put him as 47. I would have put him like around my age. That's crazy. Is it crazy how some of these people I think it's like Samuel Jackson. He's like 82 or something ridiculous. Like it's unbelievable. Yeah. They look after themselves, don't they? Clearly.
Wow.
Clearly. Giant, who's your first one?
Dracula. We know Blade's coming at some point. There's been chatter of Dracula. Everyone kept saying Anthony Starr is going to be named at Comic-Con and this and that, and we never got that. And honestly, I'm going to bring back a recast from the MCU because this person only voiced a character. We didn't see this character. So Bill Skarsgård, I would love to see play Dracula on the MCU. Yes, he voiced Crow in Eternals. Crow's no longer there as far as we know, and so we know they've reused some actors, and so I would say bring him in as Dracula. I think he could pull it off. Go watch the It movies. I think he can pull that kind of horror, that kind of scary side off of it. They might have to do some aging on him a little bit because of possibly, was it Mia Goth, possibly his daughter, possibly in the movie. So, but of course they're vampires, so they don't age, so I don't think that really matters. I think he could pull it off, and I'd love to see him come in the MCU as Dracula.
Nice. I suppose it depends what kind of angle they take Dracula down, isn't it? Because it can almost be comical in a way. But I hope they don't go down that way. I hope they go a serious route. But
you're thinking they need to keep Blade kind of the tone that Work by Night was. I think in that kind of range of tone, a little bit of Moon Knight, I think that would work, especially if they're kind of building up that MonsterVerse side of the MCU. You kind of need to stay within that tone. Yeah, you can have some comedy from Blade, that kind of stuff, but you need to have more of the serious, scarier tone to it.
I'm not sure who I'd cast as Dracula. I don't know. I like what you just said there, though, that Werewolf by Night. I think that is such a good idea. I mean, you mentioned that it was almost this time last year, wasn't it? About making a whole kind of sub-universe with all the monsters in that kind of same style. I think that's a really good idea. And I think it really fits, doesn't it? And it's like this whole genre within the genre, as we've always spoken about. And I think that's a good idea. I don't know, Alex, have you got anybody for Dracula? I'm stumped.
Yeah, so I feel like Dracula is one of those that, like, I'm really weird. Whenever I think of characters, I always, like, think of certain things that stand out to me about that character that should really be focused on. And I feel like Dracula should have a very powerful voice, and he should be somebody that's very, like, commanding, and somebody when they speak, you listen. And I feel like this is going to be a very interesting one, but Keith David. I feel like Keith David, with, like, his very deep
that
voice,
iconic voice,
would kill that role. And like,
I got one on the exact way. With inspiration from that, then Alex, I'm going to go with Coleman Domingo, who was in Fear the Walking Dead, who played Strand in Fear the Walking Dead, for that same reason.
Dude, he would be even better. I like him better, So that's awesome. But I feel like Dracula is one of those that he's like this immortal being, and he's got like a certain amount of like presence that is just like, it just vibrates you, like he's powerful kind of type. So strong voice kind of actor, and I think either one of those would be perfect.
I mean, I guess creatively could play that too as well.
Mr. Sinister.
Not to think of it, Cranston could probably play Professor X as well.
Yeah.
He could just play anybody. Nice. I think it needs, like I said, that commanding, that big booming voice would be really cool, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Just to scare the crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So my next one, my second one, It's got to be in it. We've got to go Magneto. If I've gone Professor X, we've got to go Magneto. And as you know, I've been doing a Game of Thrones rewatch, and I really like. I've got to be careful of his name now. Nicolai Costa-Waldau, who plays Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones, and I think he'd play. So I was thinking of my two as as a pair, to play opposite each other. So I'm trying to think. Now he's probably slightly younger than Jason Isaacs, I should imagine. But I was trying to think of the two playing off of each other, and I thought he might actually be really good. But I quite like Nicolai Costa-Waldau as anybody. And thinking of it, he could play Doom. He could play a good Doom as well. But yeah, I really like him. I think he's a good actor. I've not seen him in anything other than in Game of Thrones. But I do think he could. So recently, within Game of Thrones, it's the bit where he gets captured and he's kind of a prisoner for like a year or something like that, and he's all haggard and he's got these sort of clothes hanging off of him, and I just had this sort of like this thought in my head of, this kind of young Magneto in like a prisoner of war camp, and he's kind of all sort of disheveled, and I know he was obviously younger as a boy, but I had this idea that he was maybe a little bit older for some reason, and he was in a prisoner of war camp, and and I just thought he could play a really good Magneto, get opposite Jason Isaacs. So there was my Magneto. Any ideas?
So I'm so torn on this because I was trying to think of a pair of like Charles Xavier and Magneto, but I could not think of like a good pair that I like together. So I'm just going to throw caution to the wind because I have a completely oddball, just random off the cuff one for Magneto. I want Daniel Craig as Magneto.
Who's that?
Daniel Craig.
Bond.
Oh, Daniel Craig, right?
Yeah,
right. Sorry, gotcha. Sorry, I thought you said Daniel Craig. I was like, I didn't hear you pronounce his surname. Daniel Craig, of course. Right? Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know why. I think
they could play opposite each other though. So think the two that you just said, Giancarlo Esposito and Daniel Craig, could play opposite.
They're similar ages, I think. Like I think Daniel Craig's sort of getting up there. I think Esposito might be a little bit older than him, but like I don't think it's that big of a deal. My biggest issue here was like, for two young actors, I don't know who I would choose for Professor X or Magneto, but for those two, I think that they would both do a very good job for either one.
I like that. I like Daniel Craig. Yeah, I've never even thought about him for a part in the MCU, actually, to be honest. But that could be a good role for him in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
55 Daniel Craig, 65 Giancarlo.
No, is there that big a difference?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought there was that big a difference. I knew Daniel Craig was in his 50s, but I think they could play opposite each other. I think that's quite good. Yeah, nice. Jared, any ideas for Magneto?
Yeah, and I had some thoughts about this, and I'm trying to think how they would bring the Magneto story and explain his age into the modern time. And so I don't, and by suggesting this, I'm not trying to, completely change up, but there's been some thoughts out there that they could maybe change his backstory a little bit to maybe come from the civil rights era to kind of get his age a little bit down, because, if you go with that, Magneto's going to be very old in the MCU unless they kind of say he has some kind of slow aging stuff because of his powers and this and that. With that being said, Denzel Washington, if they did change that up, we might pick. I think him and Giancarlo Esposito could go back and forth, and we've seen Denzel play all kinds of roles to where I think he could pull off the good and the bad side of Magneto in that role. And he's only 3 years older than Giancarlo Esposito. So
nice. I had a thought a little while ago about that, exactly that kind of what is his what is his background, but what's his trauma? What's his sort of traumatic event? So obviously we had the Holocaust that was Magneto's traumatic event in the source material. Could it be like apartheid in South Africa? Could that have been he's kind of where he sort of was treated terribly, and could that be his motivation?
You could have like anything like more recent to like Bosnia or those things,
Rwandan,
Rwanda, the breaking up of Russia and all the different countries that spew out of that and all that conflict. So there's all kinds of things you could do to bring it into modern day. Like I said, unless they explain the age thing and say, hey, because of powers, he ages like 4 times slower or 3 times slower than
Mhm.
than the average person.
Which, I mean, if I guess like you could say he was like a child in World War II, and you could say that he's just like 80 something years old, like he's like 89 years old, but with his slow aging, he only looks like he's 60, and they could sort of get away with that, I think.
You could make him an experiment of Zola in Red Skull during the same time as Captain America, and he was but a child or a teenager, and that's why he slowed down, and that's why he could still be in a good age now to be in the modern MCU.
Yeah.
They could make him one of like the MCU's like earliest mutants that was like recognized but never really like classified sort of thing. You know what I'm saying? Like if they chose to do that, make like mutants back then is like, we know there's something special about you. We just don't know exactly like how to identify what that is kind of just yet,
Yeah, nice. And I mean, it showed from Civil War that they could, they sort of had the super soldiers on, they weren't really on ice, were they? But they were kind of like suspended in like frozen animation type thing. So they've kind of used the super soldier serum and then frozen people in time a little bit. And yeah, that I like the idea though that it harks back to Captain America in World War II. I think that's a really good idea, and you could almost have it so that Captain America like saved him out of a camp somehow, like not necessarily like took him personally, but liberated him somehow.
That's when he saved Bucky. He could have gotten out there and went off on his own.
There was a scene in X-Men Evolution, I think it was the cartoon, where Captain America and Wolverine actually go into one of the camps and they're pulling survivors out, and Wolverine is the one that picks up a little boy Magneto and carries him out. And it's like Magneto, I think, is having like a flashback because he's like almost, I think in that scene, if I remember correctly, somebody's kind of like sort of like making Magneto wonder why he like gives Wolverine almost a free pass, sometimes. And it's because it's like he literally saved him as a child and carried him out. And Wolverine doesn't ever really know that in that show. So I really like how they did that in that show,
That'd be a cool scene in the MCU, flashback even.
Oh,
to have
so
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Would you? So do you think? Yeah, that would be a cool scene. Would you have both Cap and Wolverine doing it, or would you just have one of them doing it? But I think that would be quite cool to see that Cap was working with Wolverine. It's just he didn't tell anybody because he just didn't need to. So
yeah,
that would be quite cool.
Yeah,
nice. So yeah, they're my two. So we've had a good discussion about those. Alex, who was your second one?
All right, so of course, I have to talk about Jensen Ackles. So I'm going to go Jensen Ackles for Nova. For Nova. But like I was thinking about it. I was like, I think he would be decent as Richard Rider. But let's say we don't get Richard Rider. Let's say we go like Sam Alexander. So we go somebody a little bit younger or something. And I was thinking like maybe like Aidan Gallagher from that Umbrella Academy show. I think would be like a decent Sam Alexander. I think the kid's like maybe like 20 years old now or something. So I mean, he's not, he's pretty young. So I think he would fit that kind of role. It just would depend on which one they chose and who they went with. I feel like they should probably go Richard Rider first and then build up to Sam Alexander. And then they could totally do one, Jensen Ackles first and then get to Aidan Gallagher. But I don't know if they would do both. So maybe whichever one they go,
Nice. John, who's your Novas?
I only don't like the Jensen Ackles one because Jensen Ackles my fantasy pick for if they ever do a proper Taskmaster with Tony Masters. I think, just what I saw him play in as Soldier Boy and some of that tone that he carried, I think he'd be the perfect Tony Masters in the MCU. As far as Nova, I think it's a good shout for Nova, just because of what Ackles has done over his career, especially some of the supernatural stuff. I don't know who I pick. I don't know. I'm trying to think. It's too bad we're probably not going to get a Star-Lord in Nova type thing bouncing off each other, because I could totally have them just have John C. Reilly turn into Nova and them kind of play off each other, and kind of have that comedy chops, that buddy cop style type of movie. But I don't think we're going to get that in the MCU. So yeah, I can't think who I would make Nova, Richard Rider in the MCU.
Do you not think we will? I think after the end of Guardians, I think that's exactly what we're going to get. When they said about the legendary Star-Lord will return, I can't think of anything better. Because we said this at the time, and I'm not sure, one of you two, it might be somebody on the group that said, I don't think I could watch just a whole movie with Star-Lord. Like, he's not a strong enough character to just have the Star-Lord movie. But to have a Star-Lord and Nova kind of buddy cop type movie, like you said, with them bouncing off of each other, and they were famous friends in the books, weren't they? They were great. They bounced off each other all the time. There was a great scene at the end of, I think it was the Infinity arc, where they basically like sacrificed themselves together. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant ending. I think it was that arc anyway, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think that's exactly where they should go, and I think they should cast somebody who would be able to bounce off of Chris Pratt, and I think Jensen Ackles is a good shout, but I also like him for Taskmaster as well. But yeah, so I'm just thinking of somebody who could bounce off of Chris Pratt.
And that's why I said stay with John C. Reilly, because John C. Reilly can do that. We've seen some of the stuff he's done in other movies, other projects. He's a little bit older and that kind of stuff. And, but at the end of this whole thing, he could transfer the power or something like that, could go to Samuel Alexander or whatever at the end of this and only have him for that first part, and they could do something like that. But yeah, definitely we need someone strong to bounce off back and forth.
And I feel like you could also do this thing where you could have, say, the Nova Corps build up with Sam Alexander, and if we just wanted to really, we had Guardians of the Galaxy, the first movie, connect to the Nova, to, him bringing the Power Stone and stuff like that. So you could almost have maybe Sam Alexander, if they chose to skip Richard Rider, just show up on Earth looking for, what's his name, Peter Quill, because he's upset that maybe he blames him for, Thanos coming and killing everybody for the Power Stone at the start of Infinity War. I mean, you could just chalk it up to something simple like that,
Have you seen the movie The 5-Year Engagement? So it's got Emily Blunt in it. It's got the one female from Community. I can't remember her name. She was in Glow as well. But Chris Pratt and Jason Segel were in that movie. And the movie, they were good friends in the movie. And their on-screen back and forth was pretty good. I would like to see that expanded and kind of maybe have Jason Segel play Richard Rider and then have those two have that buddy cop movie together. I think that could happen between those two.
Yep. That could potentially work, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It's a tough one. I don't know who would bounce off of him. I'm going to throw somebody out there. I don't know. I'm just thinking, oh no, that wouldn't work. I was going to say John Krasinski. I know that sounds crazy because everyone wants him as Reed Richards, but I was just trying to think of somebody who could bounce off of Chris Pratt. I'm not sure. I do like Jensen Ackles. I like the idea of them two together. I think that'd be pretty. I do think that would be pretty cool. So I'm gonna agree with you there, Alex. I think that's a good one.
What if they recast Star-Lord and had his buddy from Supernatural? His brother was his brother Supernatural?
Jared Padalecki, I think it's his name.
I know the guy. Yeah.
He is like 7 feet tall, though. So, I mean, he's huge. So,
nice. Joan, who's your second one?
I'm gonna go with someone. They haven't really said he's coming, but they've teased of him. We've had the Necro Sword, we've had Gore, we've had Venom talking about the Hive Mind. I'm gonna go with Null, the King in Black. And I'm going to go with the other Skarsgård brother. That way we can have the trio in the MCU and have Alexander Skarsgård play Null. Nice. I think he could pull Null off. He has the presence for it. Him sitting there, doing that, all that kind of stuff. I think he could really do it, pull it off. He's been, when he's been in True Blood or whether he's been Tarzan or other movies he's played, I think he has the presence where he can pull off Null and pull it out really well. He can have a commanding voice too as well.
Nice. I really like Noel, and I hope that they give him, when eventually we do see him in live action, they give him a nice big arc that lasts for more than one movie, and he's the villain. He's teased a little bit like what we're hoping for from Galactus. We don't just want him in and out in one movie. He's too big of a villain for that. I hope that we see Noel. We get a little bit of drip. We get drip fed, then we see him. Then we see a little bit more of him. Then he has his own movie. Then we kind of hear of him for a couple of years afterwards. I want him to stay around. I think he's a great character. I really like the character. And I think I think the whole symbiote thing has got out of hand a little bit recently. But that whole build up to that King in Black story, and then it finished, and I was like, brilliant. I loved it. And then it just kind of carried on after that, the symbiote thing. And it was that up to that point, I really enjoyed the whole King in Black storyline. And I like the King in Black and there was some great little fan art of Henry Cavill as Noel, which looked brilliant. But I'm going to go with somebody different. I'm going to go with Anthony Starr, who played Homelander.
I could see that too. That's a good shout.
I just, do you know what I've always got from Noel reading from the pages? He's quite flamboyant. It seems flamboyant anyway, but also really evil and powerful. But it's got that. It's almost a bit camp sometimes when you see some of his scenes and some of his facial expressions. And I think Anthony Starr could pull that off.
Have you watched True Blood?
No.
That's Alexander Skarsgård in True Blood.
Okay.
So watch if you ever watch want to watch a series, watch True Blood and just watch him throughout that series. He can pull all those different things off.
Okay. Gotcha. Alex, you got a no?
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a little bit of a U-turn. I'm gonna go back to a Doctor Strange movie, and I'm gonna say the guy who plays Mordo. I think. Would you?
Yeah. I can't.
Yeah, she's
Chewie. I offered it. You'd offer it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I think he would do great. I just, I think it would fit him. I think he would I think he played Mordo kind of dark, and I think he would be able to put a really dark spin on Null, and I think he'd do a good job with that.
Only if he says too many damn symbiotes.
All right. Here's one then. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. I've threw this in not as another character, right? But we've spoken quite a bit about our fan cast for this. We haven't really batted an eyelid at different genders and at different races and different backgrounds. But we haven't spoken about different genders. So pick one of your characters, any one of the ones we've spoken about, and try and cast a female, because we've spoken about all males. Try and cast a female as one of those characters. Any one of them. Doesn't matter. Any one of the ones we've spoken about. Think of a female that could play, so Professor X, Magneto, Nova, Doom, Dracula, or Null. And if there was a gender swap, what female actress do you think could play? Not that you want it to happen, but I'm just saying, let's say that it had to happen. What female actress could play one of those characters?
Okay, I got it. Nova with Chris Pratt. She was his wife in the 5-year engagement, and she has comedy chops too. Allison Brie. I think they could pull up a buddy cop style thing back with each other.
Nice.
Back and forth with each other.
I don't know. I'm gonna just Google her name because I don't.
Yeah, she was in Glow. She was in Community.
Oh yes, I do know her. Yeah. Yeah, actually, yeah, that could be quite good. I know who you're talking about now. Yeah, nice. Okay, go on.
All right, so I've got kind of a weird one that neither of you may know of. This is kind of a deep pull. This is from American Horror Story, but there's a lady that plays Death in American Horror Story in season 2, and her name is Frances Conroy, and she's an older lady, and she's really good at playing these very dark characters. And I would cast her as Null. That's who.
Oh yeah. Just looking at her, I do recognize her. I don't think I've seen her in anything. I do recognize her. But yeah, I see that. Yeah.
I think she'd kill it because she does this really good thing about playing roles, and she'll play a very colorful character, and then she'll go and play a character like Death, and I'm like, man, the range to do that is amazing. To go from one end to the other, it's wow.
So I was going to go with Noel as well, and I was going to say she's fairly old, but I think she could have done a great job maybe 10 years ago. Glenn Close.
Oh yeah,
as Noel. I think she's almost got the look of Noel. She's quite sort of pointy, pointed features, pointed nose, pointed chin, and so think of her in. I know she was in the MCU already. She's been as a Nova, hasn't she? But I think she would make a great Noel. I just quite like the idea. I thought that would be fun if we could sort of threw in a gender swap for one of those characters. Who would you not gender swap out of those?
Doom.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Kind of has to be a man, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I can't really say I have too many squabbles about the others, but Doom is just one of those that I don't know. I just feel like it's just Doom. You know what I'm saying? It's Victor Von Doom. I couldn't imagine a Victoria Von Doom. And I don't know.
I know what you mean. I think out of all of them, he's the only one that you unequivocally you could say that that has to be a guy. Like, I don't think a female could be that character.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as could a female be that arrogant and that kind of, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's just very full of himself, and he's a very toxic person. He lies to himself. Like he lies to everybody. But like it's also Doom too at the same time. So I mean, I don't know. Like I hate Doom, but I love Doom at the same time. It's such a very weird character, So
Yeah. Sure.
I've got one we didn't mention, and I mentioned this in our chat earlier. That I'm surprised that Alex didn't say Ghost Rider, and I'm going to go with the Ghost Rider, but not one that we've talked about much. You guys seen Prey, right? The latest Predator movie? Amber Midthunder. Kushala.
Right. Okay. I don't know much about that.
The Native American Ghost Rider from early on too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that was the one that was also like the Sorcerer's Dream too.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. From the chat here, Halcyon 73's better. I think my stepmother could possibly play Victor. That's awesome.
Is that based on the attributes that we was just talking about?
Yeah.
Another Ghost Rider that she could play too would be Alejandra Jones.
Yes.
I think she'd kill that role too. Ghost Rider's really funny. I don't know if y'all have seen Barbie. I haven't seen Barbie, but I keep seeing that Ken shot of him in the all black. And I just keep picturing Gosling as Danny Ketch for some reason whenever I see that. And I'm like slowly convincing myself that I would support Gosling as Danny Ketch in the MCU. And I don't know why. But
he was rumored to play Richard Rider for a while. And I think if we did the buddy cop, he could pull it off. Because have you seen that movie? What is it is it called The Good Guys with him and Russell Crowe? When he's like a private eye or something, and Russell Crowe's a cop and they're kind of going back and forth. I think he could possibly pull that off with Chris Pratt as a buddy cop movie too, as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you who else could probably do that as well. He's I'm not overly keen on his acting, but Channing Tatum could probably pull that off as well as a buddy cop with Chris Pratt. I was just trying to think of that kind of that dynamic between the two of them, but no, you're right. Ryan Gosling could probably pull that off opposite Chris Pratt as well.
Yeah, I quite did like Channing Tatum in the Jump Street movies. I thought he played that role kind of well. And then,
do you know what?
So I could see that.
That was exactly where I was getting the buddy from. That was exactly what I was thinking. All right, then cast Channing Tatum and what's his face?
Chris Pratt?
No, the guy that played in 21 Jump Street.
Oh, Jonah Hill? No, I don't.
Jonah Hill.
Yeah, no.
Jonah Hill was MODOK.
Yeah.
That's what we should have done. Taken some famous sort of double acts and tried to cast them in the MCU. I mean that was quite fun.
Another one here from Halcyon 73 from via Twitch. The Joker was brilliant film. I can't remember actors' names well, but it was a super gritty one with a different take on the beginning of the Joker.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
That was who it was, wasn't it? That was really good. I really enjoyed that Joker movie. Actually, it just showed that we've spoken about it already tonight, and I speak about it all the time. That looking at the villain angle from a different angle, like you almost felt sorry for him for quite big chunks of that movie, and when he goes to the end, he just loses it.
And he falls up and says, "Yes, was a really good film."
I actually hated that movie the first time I saw it, and I had to the second time I watched it, I just had to put everything that I knew, just leave it at the door, and just watch this movie and not think about anything else.
Yeah.
And
when you say everything you knew, do you mean from the Joker's history, or is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean this is I feel like in DC Comics, in probably the last decade, the Joker's become more of an ideology more than just a person. So it's more about him spreading that ideology. And I felt at the end of this movie where they have that scene where he is being taken out, and I think he's in cuffs or whatever, and he gets in the cop car and all the rioting's going on and people are dressed up like the Joker. That's kind of I feel very on par with the ideology of the Joker is he's spreading his him as a virus to the world, and not like a real virus, but you know what I'm saying? That toxic ideology of like hurting people. I mean, he goes on there and he like shoots that guy in that movie at the end and like all that kind of stuff. So I feel like they kind of get some of it right. I just don't really like the whole, like, they have that scene where they're like, oh, you know, he thinks he's like really Bruce Wayne's sibling. And I was like, oh, Lord. Like, you know. But they have that scene where like his mother was like a maid for the Waynes or whatever, and they do all that. I thought that was a little bit like unneeded, and there's some stuff. But yeah, I mean, like, I think the Joker's just been done so many different times and stuff that I don't really think it was like that big of a deal the way that they did it. It was just like, it wasn't what I expected the first time going in, and then watching it again, I just kind of had to like leave the stuff that I like and know about the Joker kind of to the side, you know?
Maybe that's why I probably enjoyed it a little bit more, because I don't really know much about him.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's why it helped, because I didn't really know, and I just kind of watched it. I think I was pretty detached from it. Do you know what I mean? As a Joker movie, I just watched it and just enjoyed it as it was. But yeah, I can imagine that having some background information, it might change it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I liked it better than the Jared Leto Joker. I mean, like, that Joker is so wrong in so many ways, but you know, it's just one of those things where like I felt like that one was off the rails in comparison, but I felt like psychologically speaking, Joaquin Phoenix got, you know, that character down. Like, he had a great performance in that movie, so like it alone, it's a solid movie and it shows, you know, it did well.
Yeah, I agree, and he did. I just can't get past Heath Ledger's Joker. I'm going blank here. Sorry. Heath Ledger's Joker. I can't get past that one, and it's a shame that we're not going to be able to get Heath Ledger's Joker plus Paul Dano's Riddler on screen together, because I think that would be something.
Yeah, I'm actually like kind of excited for the Lady Gaga and in that second Joker movie. I don't know why, but like I loved her in American Horror Story. I think she's perfect as Harley Quinn, because she can play those crazy characters, and Harley Quinn is, I think, right up her alley.
She's clearly, you know, a bit of an oddball anyway. You know, she's clearly a bit of an oddball anyway. And I think it does take that kind of level to play that kind of character, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, if I had to choose maybe like 5 other people other than Robbie to play Harley Quinn, she would have been on that list and probably would have been my first choice. So I was like, okay, like, I've really got no problem with that. Like, I like her more as Harley Quinn than I do Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, to be honest. So.
Right, I was just about to say, I don't think Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn would have gone with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. So maybe this one will go with that Joker.
Yeah.
From the chat here, Halicon73 has more. The film was akin to Falling Down in reference to the Joker. In a way, is a good guy gets done over so much society, he turns bad. It's a good film idea, which I agree. That's a great point there.
Falling Down is such a great movie. I absolutely love that movie. You feel so bad for him. Like, just every aspect of his life is just like poking him all day long. Like, how many times have you felt like that in real life?
And as you get older, you relate more to him.
Definitely.
And he also says, I must confess, the original Batman series is still super funny, as is the original Star Trek. Yep.
I want to say that there was this one episode of Batman the Animated Series, and it was so awesome because basically the Joker actually has like a guy who's like a regular guy who gets one up on him, and it's like some nobody, and the guy like says to the Joker, I think, while he's holding him at gunpoint, like, isn't this terrifying? Like, you're about to be killed by like a nobody or whatever. And it's terrifying to the Joker that, you know, he fights the Batman, and some guy that nobody knows his name is probably gonna like put him down in that moment. And it's like very shocking to the Joker almost in that moment, because he's like, you know, a criminal and he should be known Gotham-wide, and he can't be taken down by this like little guy that like nobody has ever heard of. And it's just like some guy that Joker just like basically ruined his life, because he was caught in the crossfire of what the Joker was trying to do. And it's just one of those things where it's a cool little, like, you never would expect this twist kind of type of thing. And I think Batman comes in at the end. But yeah, I mean, like, Joker's such an interesting character.
I was literally going to say exactly the same words. I was going to say, he's such an interesting character, isn't he? When you look at the different people that have played him, some of the role, like some of the people, you know, Jack Nicholson, his take on the Joker was exceptional as well. And then, yeah, we said about Heath Ledger, and yeah, Jared Leto's wasn't great, but again, it's a completely different take on a Joker. And Joaquin Phoenix's take on Joker, brilliant. It's just different. It's almost like different. We say here at Iggy, horses for courses. So there's different horses for different courses, and that's exactly what you've had in the Jokers. Like they've all been like different. If you look at the Batman, for example, I mean, up until even Pattinson, they're all they are different, but they're not as radically different as the Jokers, are they?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you look at the Batman, yes, they're different. Clooney, Kilmer, Keaton, Bale, there's loads of them. Affleck, Pattinson, yes, they're different. But if you look at them compared to the Jokers, it's radically different.
And what's funny is even in like comics, they actually did the Three Jokers storyline, which is about there being like three Jokers in DC, three different people, and Batman not realizing it all this time that there's been three different Jokers essentially. And it's that idea that the Jokers changed so much over the decades that they almost had to make it three people almost to kind of be like, hey, this is the clown, this is the comedian, and this is the criminal, So it's like they're all the Joker, but they're not all the Joker, if you know what I'm saying.
It's almost like Moon Knight in a way, but instead of one person, different personalities, it's three different people.
Yeah, and it's like three people that are like infected with the Joker, they are the Joker. They all think that they're the Joker. They're like, one of them even kills one of the other ones, like, because he claims he's the real Joker, and yeah, it's very interesting. It's like that scene in with Heath Ledger where he like kills all the criminals that are doing the heist, like, and it's like, oh, the guy gets the job done, and then he gets iced by the other guy who, is basically like the next one in line, like, and yeah, I mean, like, it's very interesting,
More from the chat from HeliCon73. He says, yes, love the film Falling Down. Also mentions, probably off topic, but the modern Battlestar Galactica was really good. I grew up on the original series, but the modern one was really good. And then also, this is from your side of the pond. Yeah, I'm from England. Horses for courses, indeed.
Indeed. Brilliant. Have we got any news to discuss this week, Jaren?
Oh, yeah, we got some news.
Okay.
Top one is so the Marvel VFX workers. Hold on a second, let me see here. Here's another one real quick before we go. You guys might know this as well. I've always wondered, is the film Watchmen DC? It comes over as DC.
Yes, so Watchmen is technically, I guess, DC. I don't think it was originally in DC, but they actually did a storyline called Doomsday Clock not too long ago, where basically, like, the Watchmen universe, I want to say it's Dr. Manhattan, comes to the realization that, like, his universe has always been, like, missing something, and that's why it's always been off the rails. And he, like, comes to the realization that his universe never had a Kryptonian land on it and inspire hope. And he thinks that's, like, part of the reason why his universe is off the rails is because it never had Superman. So,
Yeah.
Cool kind of story they did there. So
Says thanks for the info. So the news, Marvel VFX workers, they are voting to form a union. They're looking to unionize at Marvel because they currently get paid off on a weekly flat rate. This means they don't get paid extra for overtime of hours or days and have no protections against tight turnarounds. Quote, we are not sleeping anymore. We haven't seen our families. We're working every weekend. So I think that's fair for them to get, instead of a flat rate, get hourly billing or certain, but that flat rate can go both ways, right? So, in my before I work what I do now, I was an independent consultant. So you kind of got the double-edged sword, right? Because yeah, if you get a flat rate, and you say you scope it first, you think it's going to take a certain amount, so you scope for that amount, here's the flat rate. The nice thing is, though, is that you get done before that, it's extra money in your pocket because you can go on to the next project. The bad thing is, though, is that if things go wrong, go sideways, and then go over, then you are losing money and you're kind of working for free, or because you just didn't quote it properly for that flat rate. Whereas an hourly rate, you're getting paid for exactly what you do, and maybe making a mix of a blend to where it's a certain flat rate up to this point, and then anything extra on top of that, it turns into an hourly rate. So it can be a double-edged sword with that. So yeah, real quick. Gotta bounce, take care, people, love the stream. Night. Yeah, thanks for joining us, Halicon, again. Come back next time. We'll be on again next week. So yeah, but it can be, both ways, depending how you you bill things out at and price things out and quote them out. So I can see it both ways. Maybe a hybrid type model for that would help them going forward.
Yeah, for sure. It's certainly important that they're protected, I think, and that they get fair treatment, 100%.
The Disney earnings call was last week as well for the quarter. Bob Iger plans to reduce the number and cost of Disney titles released in theaters after some box office disappointments. So if you're going to reduce and try to get the cost down, you have Disney Plus, man. You know, maybe you start doing some premium stuff on Disney Plus instead, like you did with Black Widow, and not have to worry about theaters. I don't know, just spitballing. But he asserted that moving forward, he believes the three business will drive the greatest growth in value creation over the next 5 years. Film studios, parks business, and streaming, all of which are inextricably linked to our brand and franchises. He further went on to say, we are making extensive Hulu content available to bundle subscribers via Disney Plus. He also went on to say, is by focusing on big franchises and tentpole films, we're able to generate interest in our existing library, he added. For example, we're seeing tremendous engagement on Disney Plus with the previous Guardians of the Galaxy films, the original Avatar, and the first 4 Indiana Jones movies. Also to note that price increases are coming to Disney Plus as well. So,
Yeah,
I think that they could probably do with less content. Again, I think we've been saying this for a few years now, haven't we? Really, there's probably just too much in regards to Marvel content. Anyway, there's probably just a little bit too much. It's not necessarily saying about quantity over quality. It's just there's probably just too much. And if they're making 3-4 shows a year and 2 or 3 movies a year, that's a lot of money to be laying out. I think a lot of people would probably be happy with 2 shows and 2 movies and save them millions.
Yeah, I personally, I think there's a little bit of a push and pull going on here, because on one side, I see it like as, I think the streaming was ultimately to get everything on streaming, get everybody to become a subscriber, but I feel like, with there being such a plethora of streaming services out there, I feel like if they really want to make money, I feel like they should go back to licensing everything out and putting everything, giving that access outside of just the streaming service, and I feel like they almost have to do that. And I think the other side of that kind of coin is with the streaming service, they put movies in the streaming service very quickly now. So if you're only going to put it in a theater for say a month or 2 and then switch it over to the streaming service, I almost feel like they should maybe try and drive that ideal of maybe you won't see it on the streaming service for another few months, maybe take longer to put it on there to kind of try and get people more into the theaters. I feel like, there's a lot of new problems that are going on right now, I feel like, with the movie industry and things that streaming has just thrown quite a few wrenches into just the normal operations and how we look at things. And we can't look at that stuff, I feel like, with the same kind of glasses that we did say 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with, sorry, Joe, I was going to say, I totally agree with what you said there, Alex, about the fact that people know that the latest movie's gonna. I mean, I was flicking through the TV this evening, and I can get movies that are out, 4 weeks ago on my TV, and that's not going to encourage people to go to the cinemas, is it? If they know that it's going to be on their television in their lounge within a couple of months, or not even that, a few weeks of it being released.
That's where I think if you own the content and you can put it on your own streaming service and people are doing that, you should have an early access pass on there to say, look, you pay for, you can do either a monthly fee, the movies have those movie club things where you can join them and get so many free tickets a month. You pay an extra premium on top of your streaming service and you get the movie at 90 days, right? 90 days, you can watch it. Everyone else can't get it to 180 days on the streaming service unless you pay for that. Or you can do it a la carte too as well, and you can pick and choose. It's going to cost you more a la carte, but still, you kind of have the difference because people are going to wait it out. Yes, we saw that Barbie and some other, and No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, all those films they did big in the movie theater, but those are kind of not they're the exception, not the rule.
Yeah,
for what we're seeing. So you're gonna have to find something to do it because not everyone's gonna sit there and go to the movies. They'll wait it out, and a lot of people like it from their home. They have young kids, they have this and that. Sometimes it's just hard for them to get out to see a movie too. So if you could have some kind of premium tier that gives you early access, or you can buy early access a la carte, that only helps them out too as well.
Yeah.
So back to on the earnings call, they did talk about the upcoming slate. Deadpool 3 was not listed in the presentation. So they did have their updated theatrical slate upcoming movies. It was for the first half of 2024 they showed. So up till June of next year. Deadpool was not there. So Deadpool, because of the strike, is delayed right now. It is. So it looks like that could be late 2024 to early 2025. Brave New World was also not listed, but again, they only showed up to June 2024. They didn't show July, which I think is Brave New World's release time. The Marvels release date, the Marvel 10th was on there. Echo and I Am Groot were missing from the upcoming key show releases. The only two ones that we talk about really that were shown was Ashoka, who's coming out here next month. Next week, okay. And Loki season 2 were listed, but again, they said key upcoming show releases, and that's why that could be why Echo and I Am Groot were not shown. They also said that Disney Plus has lost 300,000 subscribers in the U.S. And 11.4 million overseas. The streaming service is now at 146.1 million global subscriptions, down from 157.8 million.
How are they not making money with that many people paying? I mean, I know that it costs them 200 million to make Secret Invasion, but they must get that in like a day.
Yeah.
Like I don't understand.
Well, I guess you look at infrastructure, all that kind of stuff too. So who knows? Data center.
Yeah, and sometimes I wonder with the streaming service, like I pay for stuff to not have ads on it, right? And it used to be like people made money off of the residuals based on the ad revenue that was taken in on the commercials that was played. Now, whenever I watch stuff that has no ad revenue, how are they making money off of that?
Yeah, Disney Plus has no ads. So
yeah. So like it's a little bit hard to pay somebody like money unless we're like marketing stuff in the show and nobody's realizing it. Yeah. Like, I mean, like, unless I've missed this somehow, like, I think it's a little hard for them. And I mean, like, I think a majority of streaming services offer that now. And when you take that option where you can say, hey, you can pay like $3, $5, $6 extra and get, ad-free shows, like people will pay the $6 extra, but they don't get that ad revenue at the end of the day. And then those residuals don't flow to everybody,
What's the balance? If they balance that out properly,
Yeah. It's hard, and I feel like this is just that era of the streaming service that we still haven't, like, streaming services in the big scheme of things, like in movies and everything, they're relatively new. They're young, like, in comparison. So this is like, I feel like a very interesting scenario because I think with the amount of streaming services that are out there and the accessibility to them, and the ability to not have ads and things like that, they've got themselves kind of in a weird box, I feel like, sometimes on some platforms.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Speaking of, Andy mentioned out content, or one of you two said it, Andy or Alex said about content on other platforms. Marvel Legends, you can now watch season 1 on Marvel's YouTube channel.
Oh, that's cool.
So, yeah. Venom 3 news, Chiwetel Ejiofor, I'm sorry I'm butchering his name. Remember before I thought I said he might be playing Orwell Taylor in this movie? Well, the report is out that he's going to play. It's reportedly that he's playing Orwell Taylor. I cannot talk anymore today. So it looks like he's going to be the villain of the movie. And there's a nice comic run for that with Venom, and so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out on screen.
Interesting. I really want it to be good. I really want those Venom movies to be good, but first one was all right. Second one was a tough watch, and you just like, come on, you got Tom Hardy in there, for God's sake. It should be really good. Like, please make a good movie.
Yeah, I've honestly, like, I liked the first one a lot. I thought we were headed in a good direction, and that second one, I still haven't finished the second one. I fell asleep like a
No.
few times. I tried to watch it, and I think I woke up at one point and I was like, "Why is Venom at a rave? Like, isn't sound one of his weaknesses? Like, what is this? Like, you know?" And it just like it seems so confusing to me. I thought I was dreaming, and then I'm like watching this. I'm like, "Wow!" Like, you know, I just don't really know what they were doing with that movie. I think like people in the movie industry get hung up on wanting to do 3 films, and I feel like sometimes like they make one good movie and then it's just like, hey, let's pump out another one, and
So that we can then just make the third one, basically.
yeah, so we can put a bookend on this and put a make a third one and make more money, and it's like, oh, you know.
And they teased Toxin at the end of that movie, I believe. The cop being Toxin, and what they're gonna play on that too going forward. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Agatha news. Sashir Zamata, she confirmed she's playing Jennifer Kale in the series. So we now have Jennifer Kale in the MCU coming up.
Awesome.
Miles Gutierrez Riley is not playing Teddy Hoechlin. So there was a rumor going around that he was going to be playing Teddy / Hoechlin. He is not. However, it's reported he's playing Eddie, Billy's very supported boyfriend in the series. So.
Well. Okay, that's interesting. Do you know what? I'm looking forward to this series more than what I thought I would be. I'm finding it more and more interesting. I think it's because it's not something that I would be into normally. Probably not something I would read either. Probably not the type of storyline and genre that I'd go out and buy books about. So I'm quite intrigued to see if I like it. I think that's what Miss Marvel did that, because Miss Marvel had the same feelings about that. I was like, I'm not really sure I'm going to enjoy this program about a teenage Muslim girl living in New York, but then I did, and so this I'm kind of got the same vibes with this. I'm like, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy a program about witches and this kind of stuff. So I'm kind of hoping that I will.
And I wonder too, also with the Jennifer Kale being the show, if we're gonna have any ties to Man Thing, because I believe they have ties in the comics, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so. I'm wondering if we get that whole Kale bloodline thing that they're gonna do, or that they did with like the Ghost Rider stuff, like Noble Kale and stuff. I think that'd be kind of cool. They could. That's such a deep tie. I feel like we probably won't see a Ghost Rider connection at all, but
And it sounds like we are going to get some tie spinoff content from this. There's already the reported Witches Road special that's coming from Agatha, and now it's been reported that there's going to be a Wiccan show. The rumor is that Marvel Studios was developing a Wiccan Billy show pre-strike. So I don't know if that's still on the table, but there's been a couple things that have come out that were on the table pre-strike. So we're just going to see what happens post-strike. Mm-hmm. Also, Wanda news. Where's Wanda? So the Comic Circus had an article. They're saying that she's still alive. Their sources have informed them that Wanda is currently in a dormant state at the end of Witch's Road. The Witch's Road is an alternate dimension within the borders of the known universe, similar to that of the Mirror Dimension or the Dark Dimension. According to sources, they say that fans can expect this particular plane of existence to be first introduced in the upcoming Agatha Coven of Chaos series, followed by a potential special based on the location, which would premiere following the conclusion of Coven of Chaos. This Witches Road special will be similar to Work by Night special presentation in the terms of tone and loose connectivity to the main MCU storyline. Again, this is that whole monsterverse they could go off into. But, however, Wanda will not be appearing in Agatha or Witches Road. It sounds like only hinted at.
Okay.
So.
Cool.
Spider-Man news. John Watts spoke about the Spider-Man trilogy in No Way Home ending being the conclusion of his origin story. So him at the very end of No Way Home, off on his own, building his suit up. Let me see here. From the Facebook chat, we have a question. I'm more curious if we're going to see White Vision somewhere. Maybe he'll get hinted at also, but I think they're saving Vision for the rumored Vision special or Vision series, the Vision Quest series. Yeah, and possibly Armor Wars as well, because that's Stark Tech, in a way, float out there running around. So I'd probably see in that more than Wanda or Agatha or Rich's Road. But anyways, John Watts basically said at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, finishes the trilogy and the conclusion of its origin story in the MCU. When we were doing Homecoming, the discussions were always about how do we do something that you haven't seen before with Peter Parker that steers you down a couple different paths and leads you to doing things like having his best friend find out his identity and having his aunt find out, and then at the end of the last movie, having the whole world find out. So that was a fun thing to play with these new aspects, but in the end, it was nice to be able to have everything coalesce into, as its essence, the simple story of Spider-Man. We just really all took our time telling the first issue of Spider-Man, that origin story. So, there you go. Secret Wars news. Another thing before the strikes that was supposed to happen, Hugh Jackman had a meeting with Kevin Feige to talk about Wolverine having a big role in Secret Wars. And honestly, if they do this, I can see this being his last hurrah and passing the torch on.
We've been saying that for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That he'll return as Wolverine, obviously.
I mean, like, I feel like the only way you top that Logan death is you have him go out, like, with a bang, and I feel like the best one would be him being, like, first death by, like, Kang in Secret Wars, like, him just kill Wolverine, wipe the floor with them, like, he's done, next kind of type of thing, and then be like, what? Like, because, like, Logan was such a good death, and they're basically, like, pulling him back in, now, and, like, I love that meme of Deadpool where he's like, hey, like, I'm not gonna ruin this grave for money, and then he's like, yes, I will, and then, it's like him pulling Wolverine back in, but yeah, I mean, like, that was a great way to end it for that character, I feel like, and then, not that anybody's gonna complain that they're going back now, but it's gonna be hard for them to top that, I feel like, going out with Wolverine again.
Magneto killing him finally on screen would top that, because
ripping the metal out of it.
Yes. They teased it in both franchises, right? The first franchise, he said, that metal doesn't run through your whole body, does it? And he was like basically bending him right there. Yeah. And then in the last other X-Men movie, the last one, Days of Future Past, when he basically put metal into him and then pushes him out to the ocean and he drowned, and then Stryker finds him. So it's like you've been teasing Magneto killing him, but hasn't killed him yet. And I just want to see Magneto just either crush him or tear him to pieces. Mm-hmm. So
that would be awesome.
The Wolverine thing that you was talking about, having Kang kill him, Alex, similar to what they did in Multiverse of Madness with the Illuminati.
Yep.
So I'm pretty sure they used the Illuminati in that movie to show us how powerful Wanda was. Mm-hmm. She's taken out, Reed and, Black Bolt and all these other people to show us out, like, she's just like wiped the floor.
Steamrolls them,
Yeah, totally, yeah. So imagine, like, they do the same with Wolverine, with Kang for Wolverine. So, like, you thinking, oh, wow, this is Wolverine. Kang just goes, bosh, like that, and he's gone. And
but if they had, like, the original X-Men come on screen, right, from the first X-Men movie as part of Secret Wars, and he just wipes the floor with all of them. That'd be cool.
I mean, imagine Kang kills Wolverine, right? Everybody's going to be horrified, and then the camera just cuts out, and Deadpool's like out in a crowd of people who are watching this. And he's like, "I'm not losing Hugh Jackman again," and him just like going nuts. That would be so funny. Like, they could totally they could make it like incredibly sad, but then put a weird spin on it. I feel like with Deadpool,
Also, too, it's been reported that Kevin Feige also reached out to Andrew Garfield for Secret Wars as well before the strike began also. So it sounds like they're trying to get the roster together of the franchises they're going to mix together for Secret Wars. But that was all pre-strike, and once the thing is settled, things can change.
No Tobey Maguire?
Nothing heard yet, just Andrew Garfield, which, if it's just Garfield, I'm good with that. That could be his third film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Deadpool, we have some Deadpool 3 news. Rumor has it that Tom Hiddleston will return as Loki. It's rumored that he'll possibly be playing an evil variant. He could be playing two variants, the one we know and love, and the President Loki, or Loki from the 838 Illuminati. This is just a rumor, unconfirmed. Then it was later said that Loki will not be the same variant from the Loki series. So the one that we love could be the villain Loki, pre-Endgame, and then the other one could be an evil variant like President Loki. So maybe they'll go to like a different, location, and it's like we saw with all the Lokis in the Void. So,
Yeah.
the big one though is that it appears Channing Tatum's Gambit will make an appearance. He'll be getting the comic accurate suit for his portrayal of Gambit with purple armor, trench coat, and all. The other rumor though, two rumors that are going around have been debunked though so far, and I haven't seen these anymore going around. But the Dazzler appearance, because everyone said Kevin Feige loves Dazzler, or whatever it was. They kept saying, well, it's going to be Taylor Swift because she's the picture in a Deadpool costume. But that keeps getting debunked that Taylor Swift is not playing Dazzler in this film. Which, yeah, not a big deal for me. The sad one, though, is that Daphne Keene's Laura Kinney, X-23, is not appearing.
That's sad.
Yeah. The Marvels news, executive producer Mary Lovano says the film could affect the multiverse. The plot of the Marvels deals with some fluctuations in time and space, and there's definite danger afoot that could affect the multiverse. Where it all leads is a bit of a spoiler, and how exactly it'll pan out in the Avengers movie is currently being figured out right now. But we're definitely ending our characters in places that allow for plentiful opportunity. And this comes to me to that first trailer with Another Dimension, and that leaves Incursion to me.
Yeah, that's probably not a jump point that she's looking at. It's probably like the start of an incursion, most likely, and it's like, what is this? Like, and maybe that incursion is what leads to the entanglement of their powers and them switching places and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
Interesting.
And then director Nia DaCosta talked about the film being different. The biggest difference from the other MCU movies to date is that it's really wacky and silly. The worlds we go into in this movie are worlds unlike others you've seen in the MCU, bright worlds that you haven't seen before. So I almost feel like they're going to almost one-up some of the visuals that we saw in Guardians, where they went different places. They're gonna up that in this film, what it sounds like to me. She also said it's really important to me that every planet felt like a completely different space in terms of color, lighting, and just energy, because if you have the entire universe at your disposal, the planets can't feel the same. That's one that's very much high-key, colorful, bright. She also talked about Park Seo-joon's character in this movie. His character is really awesome, and it's really funny when you realize his relationship to our hero. He's definitely an ally to Carol Danvers, someone from her past that is meaningful as a friend to her, and so he and his people are important to Carol. So it almost sounds like we're going to get some gaps filled from when she left to go off with the Skrulls to find a new homeworld at the end of her movie, and that we might get some fill in the gaps there with this world that she's visiting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, obviously she visited a lot of planets, as we know. There was a lot of planets that didn't have Avengers, and she had a whole another life that we haven't seen. How long was that? 20 years, 30 years?
Yeah, between her film and Endgame,
it's 30 years of life that we know nothing about really from Carol. So there's a lot of characters, a lot of people that she would have met in that time.
We have some Doctor Strange 3 news, which I'm not sure about this one because unless this was stuff to happen pre-strike and that this now just got out, because it can't be going on now because everyone's on strike right now, so nothing's happening. But according to the Comic Circus, Marvel Studios wants to adapt elements from Time Runs Out comic event for Doctor Strange 3. The film would pick up right after where we left off in Doctor Strange, The Multiverse of Madness, where Clea traveled from another dimension to seek out Doctor Strange for his aid in fixing the incursion that he caused. Strange has been sought out by a multiversal organization called the Black Priest. Clea is a member of the organization. The Black Priest HQ will be in the nothing space of destroyed universes, which exists within the space of 2 dead universes caused by an incursion. It'll be revealed in the film that the multiverse is dying. The cause of this decay is a result of the incursions happening across the universe, the most recent one being caused by Doctor Strange. The film will also elaborate on a point made in the previous movie regarding Doctor Strange and his threat to the multiverse. Will serve as a direct preamble to the upcoming Avengers films. The film will explain how Stephen is one of the multiverse's biggest threats by establishing him as a common denominator when it comes to incursions across the multiverse, aside from the main danger of the Council of Kangs. So, yeah.
I was just thinking, was the Black Swan she wasn't a Black Priest, was she, or is this something new? Has Black Priest been around before? Can't quite put my finger on him.
You talking about from Daredevil, the Black Swan?
No, the kind of, she was like she was a bit of a multiversal. I don't think she was multiversal. Maybe she wasn't multiversal. She was some weird magic person that was hanging around with Thanos for a little while in the.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was around that Hickman. She was around in that Hickman run that led to Secret Wars and all of the stuff that led to all the incursion stuff. She was around during that. I need to go back and read that entire of like 5 years of stories to remember it. But I have to think about that. I'm sure she was. I can't remember if she was just called Black Swan or whether she was a Black Priest or not.
Yeah, that's a good thought there. Yeah,
it could be.
Yeah,
could be.
So that's interesting there. I was hoping for Doctor Strange and the Dark Dimension type film since it was Clea, and returning back and maybe Dormammu having some kind of thing with this all. But yeah, I need to go back and look at that Time Runs Out series to kind of get some more hints there to see what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I just had a little quick look up, and they were enemies. The Black Swans and the Black Priests were
okay.
enemies. So that's where their link come from. I was sitting there thinking, I'm sure I've heard of these Black Priests before, and I couldn't remember where. And that's where I think that whole so there is that little tie in there to the incursions and the Secret Wars and that kind of stuff. So yeah, interesting. Could well be true.
I wonder if we're going to see Christine / Rachel McAdams back in the next film too, as well, since she was kind of warning him and giving him information about the 838 version of her. About everything going on.
And she was an absolute point, wasn't she? Losing her.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's kind of what they did there. I mean, like, you notice in that movie they talk about Strange, and it seems like every chance he has the ability to have access to the Darkhold, he's corrupted by it, essentially, because he can't, like, say no. Like, and it's that funny thing, it goes back to What If. Like, it's like when he loses Christine in What If, that's what drives him over the edge to, like, try and get all this power. But the car accident still happens, like, so it's like he just didn't lose his hands, he lost her. He just lost her in a different way than he would, than just losing his hands. So it's like, it's a very interesting thing. I feel like with Doctor Strange, he's almost always going to go off the deep end, I feel like, with, power and things like that. I could totally see him being a big issue and always losing Christine in every universe, Yeah.
I think that What If episode was really good at illustrating exactly what you just said there. That he's always going to go off the handle and want more power and more knowledge, but to try and avoid the inevitable, basically.
Moving on from Marvel into DC. Wonder Woman 3, this is via Variety. Despite recent comments from Gal Gadot claiming DC heads James Gunn and Peter Safran told her they would develop Wonder Woman 3 together, sources who acknowledge the situation tell Variety that this is not the case. According to the sources, a third Wonder Woman film is not in development at DC Studios, nor do Gunn and Safran have plans at this time for any Wonder Woman project in the DC universe, other than the previously announced Paradise Lost prequel series for Max. It almost sounds like she is going to just make appearances like she's been doing before she gets the third project. Maybe they'll circle back around after the whole Paradise Lost series on Max. But maybe she'll be a pop-up at the end of that one. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, she could very well just, be an Amazon that's full grown at the end of that. And, it'd be like 5,000 years ago or whatever. But I don't really think that they ever really like dated like how old she is in the DC movies. I mean, she's probably around 5,000 years old. So she's like in that Thor kind of realm, where she's thousands of years old. So
yeah, speaking of Harley Quinn, there's a new rumor suggests that Margot Robbie will be back as Harley Quinn in the new DC. So,
wouldn't mind that. I quite enjoyed her as Harley Quinn. She was fun.
And after the whole Barbie phenomenon, she's gonna have pretty much her pick of what she wants to do, I feel.
Yeah.
What's up, Alex? You got that smirk going on.
No, I'm not concerned about anybody that's in the second Suicide Squad losing their job, to be honest. So that's why the story. I was like, I'm not surprised that she's coming back. She's in that movie. So just like how Peacemaker's getting another show and
Waller,
stuff like that. Yeah, and Waller and stuff like that. So I'm just not surprised at all. So
the last thing to wrap up the news for today is that there is some movie issues going on in the theaters. I mentioned the theaters earlier with the whole streaming stuff. So Variety has reported that Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible are reportedly on pace to lose $100 million in their theatrical runs.
Jeez.
Both films cost $300 million and had marketing budgets of at least $100 million. So
they cost $300 million to make what, and then so they're not going to make $200 million.
So $300 million to make, and then they had $100 million marketing of $100 million each. That's $400 million right there to start off.
So they're only going to make $300 million from the fears.
Sounds like it.
Well, and for the theaters too, like half of the box office maybe goes to them. I know it's different, like on a per country basis, but I think in like some countries they only get like 20% of the box office and stuff like that. So, I mean, you don't really know exactly what that amount's going to be because, like I said, it'll be different from a country to country kind of basis. But yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of movies are seeing this trend where they're not performing like they're expecting, and they're not bringing in the box offices that they're expecting, because we live in this age of the blockbuster movie, and it's getting to be one of those things where like everybody wants their movie to be $1 billion film.
Movie,
yeah, and there's just not every movie can't be $1 billion movie.
Like maybe expectations need to be managed a little bit better, and then obviously finances or during the production of the movie need to be managed a little bit better. If the movie's not going to make $600 million, they can't pay out these actors, not the top ones. Obviously, I understand that a majority of the actors in movies aren't paid millions of dollars. I do get that, but maybe they need to budget better, knowing that their movies aren't going to make $600 million. They need to go, right, okay, this movie's only going to make $300 million, so we can't let it cost us $300 million to make it. I mean, I don't know where the budget cuts come, but
yeah, I feel like the biggest issue for them too is like when your budget is hundreds of millions of dollars and your marketing budget is $100 million at least. I mean, like let's say you spend $300 million on a movie, you spend $100 million on budgeting. I mean, on marketing. So you've got a $400 million budget essentially into the movie for marketing and making the movie. Not a lot of movies like go out and knock $400 million out of the park, so that's like, especially this day and age, just like after, the kind of like decrease, I feel like, in theater ticket sales. So like, I think it's one of those things where if anybody goes out and they put $500 million into a movie and expect it to make, $1.5 billion, I think that's like, you have to be very confident that that's going to happen,
Yeah, it's quite naive, isn't it? Really.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, Dead Reckoning, Mission Impossible is at $522 million. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is at $375 million.
Yeah.
So
that's if for $520 million, he's not too shabby. I mean, it probably gets to $550 for a mission for the sixth or seventh Mission Impossible movie. To still be grossing, $550 million. It's not too bad, really. But then again, if it costs you $400 million, I don't know exactly how it all works, but it's not great, is it? I suppose.
Do we know if part 2's already done? Have they already filmed it? Because this will be part 1.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know whether I think it was supposed to come out next year, wasn't it? So I'm guessing they filmed a lot of it back to back, but I don't know.
And you said Indiana Jones was at $375 million, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like that movie probably has over $400 million between budget and, marketing and that. So, let's assume that they get all the money from the box office. They're still not even breaking even. So,
yeah, that's true.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, I just feel like Indiana Jones is one of those titles that everybody knows who Indiana Jones is. And, generations know who Indiana Jones is. So it's kind of in a weird spot when you have the name recognition for 40 years of Indiana Jones, and you can't make $500 million off the movie, and you can't beat, several of the previous ones. Like,
do you feel like some of these movies are dated? No, not dated, but like they only work in a certain time. Like Indiana Jones could only have worked in the 80s when it worked. It hasn't worked outside of the 80s. So there was a TV program in the UK called Only Fools and Horses. Now they did try and replicate it in America, but this was a TV program that was based on two brothers who lived just in London, and they were kind of chancers type brothers. Like they'd buy stuff and sell stuff on markets and secondhand and that kind of stuff. And it worked because it was very indicative of West London in the sort of 70s, and they were very typical of those types of people, and it appealed to all of those types of people. So all of my family really loved watching it because all that from this sort of area, and it didn't kind of have the same appeal in some other areas of even our country. Not long ago, about 10 years ago, somebody thought it was a good idea to try and make it in America, and it just bombed. It just completely bombed. And the reason it was not because it was a bad show, but just because it only worked at a certain time in a certain place. Like it can't work outside of that area. So I wonder whether movies like Indiana Jones could only really work in the 80s and 90s. It was never going to work in the noughties and onwards. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that Indiana Jones used to, be one of those things where they had great sets. Like you didn't need CGI for Indiana Jones movies. Yeah, practical effects and stuff like that. And, I could be wrong. I haven't seen the most recent one, but I've been told there's a lot of CGI and stuff in that movie, and I feel like that was the beauty of Indiana Jones originally, was like you didn't need all that, like most of the budget was probably for actors and set pieces and stuff like that. But once you start dipping into CGI, I mean, it gets really expensive, and every movie uses CGI now. So all the budgets are huge. So everybody's got to spend tons of money for CGI. And a lot of the times it's like, hey, we just spent millions of dollars on the CGI and we get a minute or 2 minutes out of it, and it's like,
there's not enough coming back from it.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's like one of those things where it's like sometimes I'm like, man, like I understand that CGI does make things better. I can't imagine the Incredible Hulk without CGI, for instance. But like, at a certain point, it's like, if the budget's going to be like an issue, or we're just going to waste money to get like what we want, we almost like maybe need to change the way the story's written to trim some of this out.
Pass the mantle on.
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah, or do something different here and make it a modern age story. And if you do that with Indiana Jones, you can make somebody else Indiana Jones, and it's like, hey, Harrison Ford was great. It's like James Bond, like, hey, thank you so much for everything you did. Now we have somebody else and we've moved on, and it's fair.
I remember when I was in Florida as a youngster, we went to MGM Studios, and they had the Indiana Jones sort of, it was like a stunt thing, but that was brilliant. All practical effects, stuntmen, explosions. It was brilliant to watch, and I guess it was, like you say, like there's an expectation almost to use CGI now, where like from the viewer, but that's not really what gave that movie its sort of USP, was it? And I don't know. I'm not sure whether it works in this day and age.
And they could have ways to pass the mantle on, right? They said he had a son in Crystal Scroll. The actor that played Short Round is an adult now. They could have brought him back for this movie and passed the mantle on to him, and kind of said he kind of was doing other things on the side this whole time. There's so many ways they could redo this movie, and I'm probably sure if they would have brought Short Round back from this movie, that nostalgia that everyone has from the Temple of Doom probably would have brought more people into the movie. I bet. Because you had more ties to the past. Just like you do with the last movie with Marion and the Crystal Skull, you have some ties to the past there. Yes, there's some in this movie, I guess. I haven't seen it yet. But it's like, Temple of Doom was like, especially for the adults now, that was an 80s movie. Bring that nostalgia back. That would have put a lot more butts in seats, I bet, if they brought around back.
Yeah, and I feel like people get like almost tainted by what's popular right now, and they want to do it too. So like, and I feel like this Indiana Jones maybe probably suffered from that a little bit. And I think that for Indiana Jones, I think of, a guy who's an archaeologist who's going and getting into some trouble trying to pull out like a piece or something cool. And it's like the last couple have been ancient aliens, essentially, and, like time travel. And that does not feel like Indiana Jones to me at all. So,
Yes.
And that's exactly my point. There's a great line in one of the Jurassic Park movies. I think it might even be the first one or the second one. I'm not sure, but anyway, it's a great line. They're talking to Sam Neill's character, and they're like, and he's an archaeologist, so digging up dinosaur bones, isn't he? And then like the kid says to him, "Oh, like we've got real dinosaurs now. Like we don't need you. Like we don't need you to dig up the the bones. We've got real dinosaurs now." And it's almost like that is kind of, like almost like a commentary on like this movie's got to move on. Like and like archaeology is like different now because we can actually look at the real thing. But it's like that Indiana Jones movie. You're absolutely right. Like those things that he was dealing with back in those first three movies were still very sort of real problems, like the sort of fallout from the war, like the Cold War. That where there wasn't the Cold War, but because I know they were set in the 40s. But do you know what I mean? Like they were still within touching distance in the 80s. There was only 40 years prior to that. But you can't do that now because that's ages ago. So they bring in time travel and aliens, and then Indiana Jones doesn't really work with time travel and aliens.
Yeah, because Indiana Jones is a character that's more of like he's just gonna punch somebody and they'll get into like a fist fight. Yeah, I mean, like he's not gonna be like doing time travel and dealing with like flying alien motherships that have been there for thousands of years.
The Crystal Skull was fine though, I thought, though, because you always had that mystique with the whole Aztecs and the Mayans and that kind of stuff, and some kind of that. They could even relate that to the Egyptians, though there's always that alien curve there. So I thought that was fine. But yeah, the whole time travel thing.
Yeah, bit odd.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up then, lads. Good session. Good show.
Quick question.
Aaron, you got something to say. Go
on. Blue Beetle. Are we going to do that one as a review? We going to go see that, or what do you want to do with that one?
Oh, we got like 3 days until that comes out, I think.
Yeah, that comes out this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to be able to record for a couple of weeks, so I'll let you guys to decide that.
Andy's vacation time for much.
Yeah, I'm away. But look, it's been a pleasure. It was good. The fan casting was fun. I think we come up with some really good ideas. Hopefully Marvel were listening and covered all the news as always. So, Jarian, where can I catch us? Where can I catch us, Jarian?
Twitter live stream, but we can't see the chat, so make your way over to the Facebook page, one of our Facebook groups, Kick, Trovo, YouTube, or Twitch, and then we also have the Instagram and the TikTok.
Awesome. It's been a pleasure. Catch you next time, guys. Take care.
Bye.
See ya.